Hey friends, V here. I'm going to walk you through the process of uploading your mini hearts PNG file to Cricut Design Space. And then the second part of this video, I will walk you through assembling two styles of the mini hearts flower. So stick around and let's get started. First, what you want to do is open your Cricut app or the Cricut Design Space website using your laptop, iPad, computer. In my case, I'm using my iPad Pro and I'm using the Cricut Design Space app, so my screens may look different if you're using the Cricut Design Space website. So I'm simply going to open the app and it's going to give you your suggested projects, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new file or a new canvas project. So it's going to give me a blank canvas. I want to upload my mini hearts PNG file. Now this file was included with the Love You Papel Picado SVG that you may have purchased from my Etsy shop as an exclusive design, and it only comes with one layer. So once you save your projects to your device, I'm going to go ahead and upload and select Browse Files, and I am going to search Mini Hearts. And there's my Forever Petals by V Mini Hearts PNG file. It's a single layer. It is a 5-petal shape, and I simply just make sure that all of the background is removed, okay? I'm going to continue, and it's going to give me an option to save as a cut file or a print and cut. This will be a cut file only, so I'm going to save it as Mini Hearts and select the cut option and upload. Once it's uploaded into your screen, it's going to be a pretty large, but all we have to do is just downsize it. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it's highlighted with a box around it and select the edit option, and I'm going to resize it to 4 inches in height. The width will automatically, the width will automatically adjust in proportion to what you set the height to, so you don't need to change anything there. Just make sure that your measurements are on lock. So once you have the 4-inch height for your image, to create our first flower, I just adjusted. To create our first flower, you're going to need this image, and we're going to duplicate it. So we get 2 layers. You're going to duplicate again to get another layer, and duplicate again to get a 4th layer. I'm going to duplicate one more time to get 5 layers total, and on the 6th layer, which is here, I'm going to change the measurements to 3.75. So there are 5 layers that are going to be 4 inches and a single layer that's going to be 3.75 inches. These total 6 will create this one flower, okay? I am going to first change all of these just so I have an understanding of these are all one flower. We'll change it to purple. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate 1 petal here, and if you want to group them together, you can, just depending. But on this one, I'm going to change the color so I know it's a different flower. We're going to go ahead and make it pink. Oh. And so for this flower, I am going to keep it at 4 inches. I'm going to duplicate again to give me 2 layers of 4 inches. Duplicate a second time. And on this 3rd layer, I'm going to go ahead and edit to make it 3.75. And I'm going to duplicate it again. So I have 2 layers of 3.75. And then I'm going to duplicate again to give me a 5th layer, but I'm going to edit that to 3.5. Okay friends, I had to jump in here and do a voiceover. The screen here shows that I used 7 layers for the second flower, but I only used 5, so that's why it was kind of cut off prior to this. But for the second flower, we're just using 5 layers, and you'll see that process when we start putting the flower together. So anyways, send the project to your Cricut as stated, and then we get into the flower making. All right, now that we have our petals cut using our Cricut, we're going to go ahead and get into designing our flower. So I am going to be using some flat back pearlized beads for the center of the this flower design, just because we don't want it to open and then show the center of the flower. So I'm using these pearlized beads. You can find them at your local craft store. These are flat back and these have like an iridescent color to them. I'll be using the white ones for today's project. Now, first thing, we are going to design this flower here. So again, the flowers that I have here on the table, these are actually 3-inch in size. You can make them whichever sizes you need. Just follow the same proportions that I provided when it comes to the sizing on the 4-inch, okay? So for this flower, I used 5 3-inch layers and 1 2.75 layer. So I'm essentially decreasing by 1/4 of an inch on the most inner petals, okay? So for this one, I did 5 4-inch layers, okay, which are these, and I did 1 3.75 inch. So that's going to create a larger size flower compared to this one. All right, friends, technology is not on my side today, so I'm going to go ahead and have to do a voiceover for the rest of this video. So for our first flower, we are going to take our very first layer of the 4-inch size, and that is just not going to have any detail or curls to it. It's just going to stay flat. So the next 2 layers are going to both be 4 inches. I'm going to stack those together, and I am going to curl the top edges of each petal away in the same direction. And I'm going to continue that until all 5 petals have these curls completed. Once these 2 layers are complete, we're going to go ahead and separate them, and we're going to move on to the next 2 layers that are also 4 inches, okay? Now for these next 2, we are going to curl the left side away from us, and the right side is going to be curled towards us, similar to how I design a lot of my large paper flowers. So I just want the curls to go opposite of each other. So I'm going to start off by curling just the left side of each petal first. And once I do that to every petal, I'll go to the right side of each petal and curl towards me. Once you complete those layers, you're then going to take your final layer, which is going to be the very center, and it's the 3.75 inch size, and you're going to curl the same exact way we did the 2 previous petals. Just make sure that you're really curling the edges tightly. You want a lot of curl and detail in this final layer. So again, I'm going to the left side of each petal first, curling away, and then I'll go to the right side and curl forward once again. Once you've completely styled the most inner petal layer, you're going to go ahead and add a flat back pearl bead. It can be any flat back you may have that can be placed in the middle of the flower. I just so happen to have these on hand, and I'm using this iridescent white pearl. So I'm just adding that to the center. And then we get into the process of just simply stacking all of our layers from left to right, starting with the most flat petal that you see here. I'm going to take the next layer, flip it upside down, add glue to the middle base, and then place it to where these petals that I'm adding are in between the petals that are underneath it. Now, they look like they're actually aligned with the petals themselves just because of the heart shape, but they are staggered, okay? So you're going to go ahead and make sure that you attach, and then you're just going to simply attach the rest of the layers. Again, the layer you're adding, you want to make sure it's staggered and placed in between the previous layer petals. Now, this layer and going forward, you simply want to pinch the bottom petal where it meets the base, so that way it just slightly gives a natural lift. You don't want these petals to be super flat when you're adding them to each other. You want them to have a lift, so that way it begins to create dimension and more detail and lift. So again, go to the back side, make sure your placement is staggered as well. And you're just going to repeat the same steps. I'm speeding up the video here. Again, slightly lift the petals up from the base center, place them staggered into the middle, and then your final petal, do the same. Add glue and then squeeze right in the middle of the rest of your flower. And you've completed your very first mini hearts flower. Again, she's 4 inches wide. Okay, so now we're going to get into our second mini hearts flower design. Now, I messed up here because I cut out too many petals. Originally, I was going to use 7 layers, but we only end up using 5 layers. So our first 2 layers that I'm currently curling in this video are both 4 inches. The second 2 layers are both 3.75. And then the final layer is 3.5 inches, and it's a single layer. So only 5 layers are used for this flower. So we're going to start off by curling the edges of our 4-inch pieces. Now, this is where the very first one that's there, that one right there, that one's going to stay as is, and so is this second piece. So we just curl those edges and we're going to glue them right on top of each other, and they're going to be our first 2 layers. Now, our second 2 layers, which are the 3.75 inch size, we're going to also curl the edges of the heart-shaped petals away. Now, the difference here is what we do after this, and we're going to continue that into even the middle layer. So once you finish curling, you're going to take one of these layers, and one at a time, you're going to take glue to the bottom edge of the petal area, and you're going to pinch without tearing it. Sorry, I almost got out of screen here. And you're just going to hold it. Please be very careful and aware that you're working with hot glue. If you need to give yourself a few seconds before you decide to pinch the bottom edge of the petals, then do that. Again, y'all know my fingers are used to the heat. It simply feels warm to me. But this is what you're going to do for the 2 layers that we're working on now, and then the final middle layer. And I'm going to go ahead and speed up this process. Again, we're just repeating the same steps, adding glue to the very bottom edge of the petal right before the center circular base, pinching up, and you're going to do that for the 3.75 layers and then the single 3.5 inch layer. Once all of your petals are styled and ready to be layered, you're going to start with the first and second 4-inch pieces, and you're just going to stagger them as usual, and you're going to continue to stack your layers. Again, there's only 5 on this flower. Next, you're going to take a 3.75 inch, the one with the pinched petals. You're going to make sure those petals sit in between the previous layer petals. Take your 4th layer, which is again a 3.75 inch size. And again, you're going to go ahead and just place this in the middle. Now, I'm using a 1/4 inch dowel just to push the center of this layer down, just to ensure that it grabs on to the already built flower. And then our last and final layer, I'm just going to kind of overlap them. Again, I didn't realize I was out of screen, but the right side of each petal is going to be on the forefront, and then the left side of each petal is on the back side, if that makes sense. Almost like we're making a large paper flower. So I just want these overlap to be on the same size. Now, will it matter once we actually put it in the middle? Not really, but for my own peace of mind, that's what I tried to do. So I'm just going to kind of bunch it together, add some glue to the bottom base of this layer, and then simply go ahead and squeeze it on into what we've already built. Now, I didn't need to add any sort of flat back bead to the center just because the petals kind of make up the middle as well. But I am using a 1/8 of an inch dowel or skewer to kind of just push down that center layer into the flower to make sure it attaches. And that's it, my friends. You've completed your second mini hearts flower, another 4-inch size along with the first one we made. Now, the two that you see on the table, the 3-inch ones, I'm also going to be using those in the Papel Picado Valentine's Day banner, which is in a separate video. So be sure to check out that tutorial as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later.